How's everybody doing? Good. All right, great. My name is Mr. Walsh. I am a SIMMS math teacher along with other topics that I covered. But I'm here to talk basically about SIMMS. There are different curriculum levels, obviously, as you figured out in high school, and the ones that we're really going to primarily focusing on are 511, 581, which is SIMMS, and 516. Mr. Rooney is here. He's going to be talking about the difference between 511 and 516. He's just going to tell you what the differences are between those things, so you get a better idea of what topics are covered and all that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to come back and talk mainly about what SIMMS is like, since that's something that's kind of out of the ordinary, out of your typical math class. All right. So I'll let Mr. Rooney start off and talk about 511 and 516, and I'll come back and talk about 581. Okay.
Good morning. So we have, in addition to the SIMMS program, which you'll hear about, which requires a little more description because it's a little less traditional, we have two more traditional course options. We have what's called Math 516 and what's called Math 511. They cover essentially the same topics, but there are some extra topics that are covered in Math 511 that are not covered in Math 516. And we also move, we go a little faster and a little deeper, and we expect a little more independence in Math 511 than in Math 516. So if you are, for example, the kind of student who feels like you are best served by having a lot of examples and sort of a structured set of practice problems, that's the way that you learn, 516 would probably be the better course for you. 511 is going to be fewer examples, and you would be expected to do more of the learning on your own. And the differences are not vast, but they are there. Typically, students in 511 would find it more difficult than 516. For example, if we look at the kids who came out of sort of the math classes that you're in, the ones who are in who went into 511, which we call our accelerated curriculum, those kids are averaging somewhere on the order of a B, B minus, whereas the kids who are going into 516, which we call just our advanced college prep, as opposed to our accelerated advanced college prep, those kids are typically getting more, probably about a full grade higher. They're both curriculum, the same curriculum in terms of the credit that you get, but the difference is the kinds of topics that we cover. So in Math 511, which is the accelerated version, you'll do more in the way of formal geometry proofs. Both courses are a mix of algebra and geometry, and you'll be well prepared for either one of them coming out of 8th grade. In the more accelerated course, as I said, we do more formal geometry proofs, which can be challenging for a lot of kids. And in Math 516, we also do proofs, but they're a little less formal. We also do some extra algebra in the accelerated course. We do what are called rational expressions, which are sort of algebra expressions divided by other algebra expressions, and those can also be, I think, kind of challenging. So think about sort of how you feel in terms of how comfortable you are with the algebra that you're doing right now. You'll want to talk to your teachers. The best guides to what would be the right course for you are going to be your math teachers, because they've historically done a very good job of deciding what the right recommendation is for you. There are, you'll hear about some opportunities to, if you want to challenge the recommendation that's been made. The other thing is that once you get into high school, none of this is fixed. If it turns out that you chose a course that it turns out to be really way too easy for you, then, and you discover that early in the year, you can make a switch. And the other way is true as well. If you discover that it's just not working, it's too difficult for you, you can make a switch then as well. At the same time, if you decide at the end of your first year that the track you're on can be maybe it's not as challenging as you would like for whatever reason, you can make a move after the first year into the second year. So there's actually a lot of, and we're increasing the number of places where you can make switches. So it's not, the stakes aren't as high as you might think they are going into high school. There's a lot of flexibility. And your 8th grade teachers and also 9th grade teachers will help you figure out sort of the best placement for you. Does anyone have any questions about this? It's not typically the thing that, hands start shooting up in the air about. It's sort of hard to know what it is, I'm sure, that it all means until you get there. But again, listen to what your 8th grade teacher's recommendations, and just remember that even when you get to high school, there are still opportunities to make switches. So the rest of today, we're going to be talking about this other alternative, SIMMS, which requires more description of SED because it's less traditional and it's a great offering that we have at the high school. So thank you.
All right, so I'm here to talk about SIMMS. Guys, why don't you come up front? Can you do me a favor and pass out those yellow sheets for me? What you're going to get is a flyer, okay? This flyer is about SIMMS itself, okay? So first up, let me introduce myself, all right? My name is Mr. Wallace. I am a SIMMS teacher. I am the freshman SIMMS teacher. So anybody who decides that they would like to come into SIMMS and give it a try and all that sort of stuff, after we talk about this and you talk with your math teacher about possibly doing it, you will more than likely receive me as a math teacher, okay? So I don't know whether that makes you more nervous or less nervous, but at least you now know what I look like and you can put a name to the face, all right? As far as SIMMS goes, let me just talk to you in general about what it is, and then we'll get to what the curriculum looks like, and we'll get into those sort of things. I know that you're going to have questions, okay? If you could save your questions for the end, that would be awesome, but if you feel it's really pertinent, you can let us know, all right? But we do have 2 of my freshman students here to talk about what SIMMS is like from a student perspective, because just hearing it from the teacher perspective, not necessarily the only thing that you want to hear, right? You want to probably hear about the workload, you want to hear about the problems that are like, how the class is run, if I'm really super strict or, I just kind of let everybody run about, all right? So we're going to save those to the end. But what SIMMS is this. Your typical classroom consists of the teacher that's up at the front of the room. You guys are in rows. They do examples up on the board. You do an example. They do another example. You do an example. And then the homework consists of more of those examples. All right? This is for the people who don't get a lot out of that. This is for the people who are like, okay, I'd rather actually sit and talk about the math with other people. SIMMS is a group-oriented math class. The teacher is no longer really the teacher. You guys are the teachers. You guys are teaching yourselves how to do the math. All right? So let's talk about this thing. Let's go through this PowerPoint. All right? Let's talk about who SIMMS is for. SIMMS is for problem solvers. All right? Anybody who can reason things out, creative minds, good at sharing ideas. That's huge. You have to be able to communicate with the other members of your group if you were going to get everything out of SIMMS. Effective collaborators. Obviously, these things go hand in hand. Bored with repetition. You doing the same thing over and over and over again is just not working out for you. This may be something that you want to consider. All right? You don't need to be an honor student. Any 8A or 8R student earning a B- or better can absolutely fit into SIMMS. All right? If this is something that you really want to do, talk to your 8th grade math teacher about it. We can put you in there and you can give it a try and see what happens. Like Mr. Rooney said, even with SIMMS, if it doesn't work out for you at the beginning of the year, we can move you to another curriculum level that we see fit. All right? So don't think that that this choice is it for 4 years. It's not. Okay? There is the ability to move if you want to move. All right? So what are the advantages of SIMMS math compared to a more traditional curriculum? All right? So one of the things is you get to learn problem-solving skills. Since it's on your shoulders to be learning this math, you're going to be presented with a problem without having the teacher talk you through it or how to do it. You need to be able to reason yourself through it. But there's usually 2, 3, or 4 other people that you get to talk it out with. Right? So you get to have a conversation. Maybe we should go down this path. Oh, that's wrong. Let's try this one. Right? It's all about trying to figure out and problem solve. Right? Community and collaboration. This is huge because immediately when you're in SIMMS and the students can talk more about this. I'd say about 90% of the time you're in groups. 90-95% of the time you come right in, you get right into your groups, and then you just start communicating about homework, about problems, that sort of thing. You need to be able to effectively communicate with each other. That's something that's learned over time, and I'm sure my students can talk about that too. Why SIMMS? What happens is you learn math through activities, right? They're called modules, but there's different activities within a module. Basically what that is some sort of real-world example of how this math is going to be applied. So for example, maybe instead of talking about equations of lines and graphing lines and all that sort of stuff, maybe what we do is we design a breakfast and you consume some amount of breakfast and then you're going to do an activity and you burn off those calories during that. That's equations of lines, but that's an equation of a line in a real world setting. So it's learned through activities where people are communicating with each other in groups. All right, it is not lecture based. I very rarely, I'm sure they can count, maybe once, maybe twice, on that I've actually been up at the board lecturing. Okay, all right, yes, that is our class. Right, that's a nice picture of you two. All right, look, up through 12th grade, you will cover through pre-calc. Right, so this is something that you don't have to worry about. Oh, is the math going to be the same that I'm covering? Yes, it is. You cover the same amount of math, right, that is involved. I also might like to add that 581 is separate from 511 and 516. I like to think of it as more in the middle between 511 and 516. However, if I needed to pick one side or the other, it is much closer to the 511 curriculum than it is the 516, only because it's a lot on your shoulders. Okay, so let's talk about it. Why SIMMS? A modeling approach, real-world data. Every problem that you deal with is going to be something that you could encounter in a real-world situation. You're never going to have to sit there and say, okay, well, how is the question that comes up all the time? Well, how am I going to use this outside the classroom? This is it. You can't say that question in this class because everything is related to something that's outside the classroom. Okay. This process of mathematics is not just finding the correct answer. Guys, I'm sure that your math teachers that you've had in the past have always talked about the fact that knowing how to do something is almost more important than getting the correct answer. Because the thing is, if you know how to do something and you get it wrong, it's only one little minor mistake. That's what this thing focuses on. Rather than just getting one set answer in the end, you're focusing more on the process of things, how it's worked, why we're doing it. All right? It makes a huge difference because then when you encounter a problem that's slightly different from it, the process still remains the same. And you get to work with that and maybe doing a little extension on that, whether or not you get the right answer. All right? If you're worried about SATs, ACTs, MCAS, all that sort of stuff, those standardized tests will come up later, right? When you're thinking down the line. SIMMS sets you up perfect for those things, all right? It says scores have been comparable to peers and other advanced college prep courses. Absolutely, okay? What are some drawbacks or intimidations on SIMMS? There's a lot of intimidations, and I gotta let you know that with SIMMS, there's a whole lot of reading, okay? You need to be able to read through a problem. Pretty much all of our problems are word problems. You very rarely will see the 1 through 26, do the same process over and over and over again. You very rarely see that, right? But you have to be able to read and be able to effectively get the information out of it. In most cases, answers are not just correct or incorrect. They can be correct, but maybe not 100% correct. Or there could be more than one answer because of the way that you might explain something, which is very important, all right? There is not repetition. You do problem number 1 in activity 1. It is very different than problem number 2 in activity 1, which is also very different than problem 3 in activity 1. Okay? These things, you don't get the same thing over and over and over again, which can get very boring very fast. All right? It also doesn't, the thing is with formulas, if you're talking about like area of something, right? If I wanted to know how to find the area of a triangle, does anybody know the formula to find the area of a triangle?
Oh, come on, you're making me look bad.
Area of a triangle. Does anybody know how to find the area of a triangle? Formula? Area equals
Base times height divided by 2.
Perfect, right? There you go. Base times height divided by 2. As simple as that, right? And normally what your teacher would do is they would give you, okay, here's how you find the area, and then what you're going to do is you're going to get a B, you're going to get an H. Maybe sometimes you'll get an A and an H, and you gotta find the B, or those sorts of things, right? You'll be able to manipulate those things. In SIMMS, I don't give you the formula. You find it out for yourself, right? You find it out through a certain activity that says, oh, so it turns out that it's just this times this, and then it looks like we're slicing it in half. That's it, there you go, right? So I don't give you that formula, you actually develop that out of your group. How is SIMMS textbook different from a more traditional textbook? I think we talked about this, all right? Experiments, activities. I don't know what, I mean, I'll have my students talk in a second, but the activity is a whole lot of fun. They really are. It doesn't feel like you're really doing math, but you really are, okay? It's very different than, let's say, and another thing is you can develop projects, right? One of the projects that they do, you guys are going to encounter this next year, is that we talk about surface area, and what we do is you build objects based off of how much surface area and volume they're going to take up. So these were a couple projects that were done this year for kids when they're talking about building a house, or this house, or maybe like a little birdhouse, a little teepee, that sort of thing. I'm not really sure what that is in the back, but you get to build these things. It's really hands-on, really hands-on activities that you can talk about, okay? Traditional textbooks have examples to follow. So, here's an example. So that's what they did. Okay, so let's do that for number 1, let's do that for number 2, let's do that for 3. That's not what it is in SIMMS. You do the activity, right? You learn it, and then all of a sudden you get right to the problems, and they extend it right away. They don't force you to say, okay, let's practice with this a couple times, and then extend it right into the extension, and really kind of pushing your knowledge, all right? SIMMS textbooks have math notes that clarify and reinforce main concepts and skills. These math notes, which are right here, okay, these math notes are pretty wordy, but essentially what it is that is what the teacher would say if it were a lecture-based class. They would tell you, oh, the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. That's what I would tell you in a normal class. In this, you read it in the mathematics. And that's why being able to read and be able to comprehend all that sort of stuff is very important in SIMMS, right? And being able to figure out what each thing is saying, all right? Most practice problems are content problems, which are word problems, but you'll very rarely ever see something that looks like this. I'm sure you guys have come across this. Oh, I want you to numbers 1 through 38, the odd ones, right? Which work for some people. There's no doubt about that. But for others, it doesn't really work, and it doesn't solidify in their head, right? You didn't learn it, you just memorized what you were doing, so if you encounter another problem that's like it, it's a little bit different, you might get stuck, all right? The one thing that I love about SIMMS, I've been teaching SIMMS for about, 7 or 8 years. The one thing I love about it is that it's all related to some sort of occupation. You know, it's related to a real world problem, something along those lines. We've got some pictures up here, but overall it's some sort of real world situation, which makes it much more applicable and makes it much more important to know what it is that you're doing. All right? So, is SIMMS the right choice for you? These are the things that you really want to kind of think about as you're thinking about, okay, do I want 511? Do I want 516? What do I want? Yes. If you're a problem solver, you've got creative mind, you're good at sharing, effective collaborator, bored with repetition, that sort of thing, B- or better, this may be the class for you. You may want to consider it. If you don't like to read, or you prefer to work alone, or you get more out of the examples and doing that sort of, dislike, fear word problems. I'm not really sold on that. There's a lot of people that really don't like word problems that still can function very well in the SIMMS classroom, okay? Prefer the answers are either correct or incorrect. You like to be walking around and saying, that answer's wrong, that one's right, if you prefer that, right? These are the things that I want you to think about as you're kind of going through and registering things, all right? Now, I've got a couple of my students here, okay? They are freshmen. They started with me in September. Great students. You also have access to me. Now, what I want, first off, before I even let them give their whatever they want to say about SIMMS, I want to know if you guys have questions in particular about what SIMMS is, what the difference is between 511, 516, and 581, which is what SIMMS is. Anything that's on your mind. What do you got? Can you say your name?
Ernesto.
Okay, Ernesto.
Oh, why is it called SIMMS?
So, you know, it's something that has to do, you know, it's an acronym. You know what an acronym is?
No.
An acronym is like letters that stand for a word,
Oh, yeah.
like, you know, SAT, Standard Aptitude Test, or PIN, Personal Identification. SIMMS is also like that. It has something to do with Montana. Because it was developed in Montana. So the second or first M has to do with Montana, and I forget what the S and the I stand for.
Is the
But-
M math?
Yes. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that has to do with mathematics. Yes, but I don't know what the S and the I stand for. It's something. Good question.
Just quickly, do you remember? You probably don't because you don't remember anything before January apparently. Very first unit we did volume, and we were building those shapes and filling them with rice and pouring them.
Yeah.
That was a SIMMS unit. That was a SIMMS unit. Yeah. So all that stuff up there, all SIMMS stuff.
There you go.
So if that gives you a sense of what it would be like in class, remember the desks were together in little pods. That's a little bit more what we're looking for the SIMMS unit.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah.
So, are these the only math classes that there are?
No, there are other ones. So then there's the honors level, which is like 501. That's the honors track, and then there's the curriculum 2 track, which is 541. But these are the ones that are primarily what you guys end up going into: the 511, 581, and 516. Those are the 3 main ones that you guys kind of filter into in high school. Okay, like I said, I can't say it enough. If you want to, if it's not your end all be all. If you decide that 581 and then, you know, start of the year, you know, first couple units is not working out for you, we can switch you, we can move you somewhere else. I need to emphasize the fact that the decision is important, okay? But you might want to consider SIMMS. It's a nice approach. Other questions? All right, do you guys want to chat? I mean, I think we still got only a couple
Yeah,
minutes left.
15, 20 minutes.
15, 20 minutes
You don't
left?
have to take up the whole time. Feel free to leave whenever you
Okay,
want.
yeah, okay. What's question? What's your name? I'm sorry.
Haley.
Haley, nice to meet you.
Which one was the, wait, is this one advanced or?
So this one is closer to 511 than it is 516. It's the 581 is what is considered in between 511 and 516 as far as curriculum wise. It's all curriculum 1, but it's in between those 2 topics.
Is 511 Excel, is that the accelerated one?
Yeah, that would be in curriculum 1. That would be what would be considered the accelerated one. Yes. You guys want to give a little talk about what it's like?
I personally look forward to it every day except for Wednesdays because we don't have C block then. But it's literally like my favorite class in the whole day.
Yeah, so about the group work, it's basically, like Mr. Wallace was saying, it's like 95% group work. It's a ton of group work. I think your teacher was saying if you did, like, the cubes, if you did the oil black gold thing, or like there was another group one. There were like 2 group projects.
I think it was like oil black gold and then when the well runs dry.
Yeah, if you guys
That's
did
the
those
one.
two.
That
Drive was the one we
was
did
the
at
one was
beginning of the
this,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot like that. It's really good for making new friends. Like I made friends that went to Bigelow that didn't go to my elementary school because I went here. So you meet a ton of people and it's basically all group work, so you kind of have to be able to work with people.
Yes. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Nikki?
Nikki.
Do you still get a lot of group work in 511 and 16?
So with 5, 11, and 16, you don't get as much group work. You have to think.
Still get.
You still get some, yes, absolutely. I never want to say that you don't get any in any classes, because you do. The difference between the two is the fact that with SIMMS, it's primarily only group work. I'm sure you guys can maybe count once or twice. We've sat in rows and I've actually lectured up at the front of the room. Yeah, twice. Okay, there you go, twice. All the other times you're in groups and you're discussing work. 5, 11, 5, 16, you start off in rows and maybe they go to groups like once a week, maybe? I don't know, it depends on the teacher really, but something along those lines. Yes?
So I'm going to 9th grade next year and I'm really nervous. I'm not that good at that. And so what I'm wondering is, what if I'm in a group working and we just get really stuck and we can't get anywhere? What happens?
Do you guys want to talk about that or you want me to? Okay, alright, that's fine. So if you get stuck on a particular problem that you guys can't work out together, the teacher's around. I hate to say that I'm not around. I am, because I'm like walking around to different groups, asking questions, that sort of thing. But the thing with SIMMS is, if you have a question for me that your group can't answer, normally what I do is I ask a question right back to kind of get you to maybe get over that roadblock. See, the idea for me is the fact that I really want you to figure it out on your own. You can't imagine the amount of learning that happens when you do something on your own rather than somebody telling you to do it. You know, area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. You're told that and you memorize that. But if you learned it on your own, it solidifies in your brain just that much more. All right? So I never like to tell you what the answer is. I'd rather have you figure it out on your own, because that makes a connection to whole new things and makes you really learn it and not memorize it, which is good. So if you get stuck, it's okay. Everybody gets stuck. Everybody's been stuck. But it's just a matter of the teacher's not going to tell you yes or no. The teacher's going to probably ask you a question that you answer that will then lead you to how you get unstuck from that thing. All right? That's the main difference. Yeah, what's your name?
Dennis.
Dennis.
Is this system like SIMMS and 5, 11, 5, 16, is that like the same system for every high school or just not?
Each high school has its like own thing. SIMMS is in Newton North and Newton South, but haven't really seen it in other high schools. I've only been to 2 high schools. 3 high schools. One I grew up in, one I student taught in Newton North. So I know the SIMMS wasn't there. This was the first time I've heard of SIMMS. So I can't specifically say that it's definitely not in other high schools, but right now the only thing I know is that we're one of the only ones that are doing it. Yeah?
What was I going to say? Sure. So is it just like the whole time we're doing SIMMS, it's just full on like cooperation work kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, like we said, it's about 95% of the time you're in groups and you're talking it out, and being able to work on your communication skills. Because once you become effective communicators with each other, you can get through things pretty gosh darn quickly. The only thing is, this is both good and bad. We switch up groups a lot, so that you're not working with the same people all the time. So last year's class had 27 kids. This year is 16 kids. You're talking groups of 4, and then I switch them up every module. So you're going to get it about 8 or 9 times you're switching up. So if you don't get along with people that you're particularly working with, you work through it for that module, and then you know that you're probably not going to be working with them for the next one. So yeah, primarily all group work. Yeah?
When you do group work, like for the whole class, do you guys like come together at the end of class and talk about what you did?
Sometimes. Sometimes the activities call for that, where we come together and we discuss exactly what we did. I know it might not be the end of class, maybe the beginning of the next class, after you've done a little bit of homework with it. We talk about, okay, what was the activity doing? But SIMMS is set up nice so that after the activity is over, there's these things called discussion questions that you obviously discuss with your group, and you talk about, you know, what it is that you were just doing and why you were doing it and all that sort of stuff. So that kind of solidifies things. Yes?
What's the homework like?
I was just gonna, you guys want to talk about that? Because you guys would probably be better at it than I would.
I mean, the majority of it's out of the textbook, but like there's a class out of textbook, so you don't have to carry the textbook back and forth. So that's nice. But the homework the other night was to read a few pages in the mathematics note, and he told us to procrastinate on it.
You did, yeah.
Because we were going to be working on that the next day. I read it Sunday morning.
Oh, there you go.
Monday morning.
Okay, so you didn't procrastinate long enough.
But it's like what we do for homework kind of feeds into the next day, and the homework is like one of the most important parts of the class, I think.
How long would you say the homework takes you? Like if I were to assign homework, would it? We're talking like an hour? We're talking like 20 minutes?
Anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't want to say it's significantly less work than the 8th grade, because I think it depends on who your teacher was, but I feel like compared to who I had last year, I don't get as much work. I get like less work, definitely less work than I did last year.
The thing with these homework problems is that they're word problems, and I don't assign too many. You know, it's like, you know, you get homework now 1 through 38, just the odd ones, which, you know, gives you 19 or 20 problems. For homework for me, it's like you get 2, maybe 3 tops problems that you got to do. But the idea is that you have to read the problem because it's a word problem. You have to be able to figure out what they're asking, and you got to be able to do it. So the amount of quantity is less, but the quality is increased because you've got to be able to read it and be able to figure it out. Because like I told you, problem number 1 is not the same as problem number 2. Problem number 2 is not the same as problem number 3. They're all just slightly different. They're all building off of one another. All right? Yes?
Don't have the best question. If you're working in groups 95% of the time, how do you get graded?
So I guess that's a question for me. So what I have, okay, so as far as things go, we have these things called, well, we got homework, so I check that on pretty, not every day, but maybe once or twice a week. Then you have these things called group quizzes. Group quizzes are exactly what they sound like. You basically take a quiz with your group, right? It sounds a little strange, but it actually works out because what you're really doing there is you're trying to figure out how to be effective communicators, because there are rules in my group quizzes that you have to do your own work and you can't turn your paper and you can't get up. So it really does force you to actually be able to communicate with each other. Usually after a group quiz is followed with an individual quiz that's just like the group quiz, which means that, okay, so how were you effective enough to be able to communicate what you were doing on the group quiz so that you can rebound and do it yourself on the individual quiz? So those things. Finally, last but not least, are group grades. Group grades are given by me pretty much once a week that are just entered in my grade book. And I usually just discuss them with people if it's going to negatively affect their grade. So I usually assign anywhere from right around 12 points a week to figure out if you guys are communicating well, if you're staying on the topic that's being taught, you're talking about math, that sort of thing, being respectful to one another. That's how I grade it based off of that. So that is also then thrown into the grades as well. So you do get a group grade. Yes?
What if some people in your group are getting off topic but you're not? Does that affect your grade?
No. Usually what I'll do is I'll have a conversation with that group that just says, look, you might want to stay back on topic because I'm noticing that you're kind of stepping away. I'm usually pretty good at being aware of who the people are that are off topic. and we'll have a conversation with those ones in particular if I feel it's hurting the group. Obviously, everybody gets off topic from time to time. That happens. I'm okay with that. But as long as you can redirect yourself back to being focused on the math, that's fine with me. Yeah.
Do you ever get to pick your groups, or are they different?
I haven't had it done with you guys yet, but yes, there is usually one group that what I'll do is I'll send out like a Google form, and then I'll have you just make a suggestion about which like 2 people that you want to work with. And then what I try and do is I try and arrange it such that you're working with at least one other person that you picked. I can't guarantee that it'll be both because of all the possible combinations of things, but usually there is one module that you will get to work with at least one person that you want to work with. And the thing is, I don't usually do that towards the end. Like, I haven't done that with them yet. And it's because what I like to do is kind of spread you out amongst each other, and then you actually can get to figure out, okay, who do I work best with? Because it might not. I'll tell you right now, I got a lot of friends who are teachers, right? And one of them is actually doing a presentation. Mr. Mo is doing a presentation in another room, and he and I are great friends. You know, he's the senior SIMMS teacher. I'm the freshman SIMMS teacher. We're great friends. We don't work well together because we get off topic right away. You know, we'll start talking about sports or basketball or something along those lines. We get off topic right away. So I know that if I was going to go hang out with him outside of school, that would be great. I would want to do that. But he's not necessarily somebody that I would want to work with. So the idea here is if you can figure out if you can pair up with everybody that's in the class, once that happens, then you get an idea of, oh, I can work with Sally. I can work with Sally. She might not be my best friend, but I can work with her. But I can't really get along. I can't really work with Johnny because he and I are just off topic all the time. So that's something that you figure out as you're kind of going through things, and you learn those sorts of things. And I tell you that, I mean, honestly, it helps so much for college. It really does. When you go off to college, you're on your own, and you got to be able to problem solve these things. You got to figure out who you can work well with. It sets you up beautifully for that. Other questions that either for me or for my students here? Just keep SIMMS in mind as you're going through things. I'm sure that you guys have ideas of, oh, I want to do 511, I want to do 516, but I mean, SIMMS is great. It really is. Ever since I started teaching it, it's honestly one of the best classes that I've had. I mean, it helps to have students like these guys because they're great, you know. But even for the students that struggle, you know, you learn better from each other, which is great. So just keep it in mind as you're registering. And I mean, like I said, if you liked when the well runs dry, when you made the boxes and did the rice and that sort of thing, I mean, that's what the activity is all about: building things and working with it, you know, and figuring out, you know, how it's related to the math and how it's related to the topics that we're supposed to be talking about. I think we're good.
All right, can we get a round of applause for our guest?